Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Analyst Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Analyst Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. In this podcast, we'll dive into the strategies that top leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs are using to navigate and thrive in this era of accelerating technological change. Whether you're looking to lead more effectively, make smarter investments, or understand how to harness disruptive technologies for exponential growth, this podcast is for you. Each episode will feature conversations with visionary thinkers, industry pioneers, and innovative leaders who are redefining what's possible in today's rapidly evolving world. So if you're ready to start and stay ahead of this curve, let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right, everyone. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. Today we have a return guest, somebody who's been with us probably 2 or 3 times or so. When we talk about AI, tech transformation, we bring on Marcelo De Santis, who's a co-founder with me of Analyst Investors, an angel investor who invests a lot of tech, AI disruption. Also, the co-founder, CEO of Ascent Executive Coaching. You see that in the background there, the cool logo for those who are viewing this. But he's also the host of the Tech Series. You can check that out on YouTube. I don't know, what, about 15 or so, Marcelo, shows
15,
on that?
16 episodes at the moment.
And really, when I think about AI, I think about leaders. Marcelo is a go-to. He's helping executives, companies, boards really transform and understand this and help them navigate the change here. So today we're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about kind of the costs, right? The cost of AI. So that this is kind of for executives, P&L owners, CEOs, even boards, right? This is becoming a more and more important line item. If you look at just some of the AI players, right? Anthropic. They say the fastest growing AI company ever. I think it's the fastest growing company ever, right? And they're doing they're doing right now about 30 billion in annual recurring revenue, 30 billion. At the end of the year, they're going to be doing about 100 billion. And then there's some people that say by the end of 27, they're going to be doing about a trillion in revenue. Just amazing. And then obviously they're getting raised to do an IPO here in the season of mega IPOs, about $1 trillion valuation on their IPO. Then you have OpenAI, pretty much the same growth, roughly the same revenue, and roughly getting ready to, they're trying to compete for capital and do another, IPO, $1 trillion like valuation on their IPO. Before it used to be like unicorns and get excited. Now it's just like trillion. And then you have Gemini, the quiet giant, growing, I think 800% year over year, and they're kind of positioned in there. And then one that's kind of not totally in the AI space, but related is SpaceX AI, right? And then so there's, and then you got Anthropic buying chips. They can't get enough of these AI chips, right? So you got interesting partners that are happening out there. And then SpaceX going to do a $2 trillion IPO. So, I say that just for everyone who's listening is these are companies whose revenue is growing exponentially, tons of money is going out there, crazy demand, a lot of revenue. And then, Marcel and I were just doing a quick talk. It's all good and it's all great until you and those who are listening on the other side and you get the bill. And then where all this revenue is coming from. And in some cases shocking, right? So Marcelo, welcome to the podcast. And just your overall, let's open it up with your overall context on the revenue growth and the cost, and just your thoughts there to start.
Thank you, David, for having me. Basically, I've been talking to CIOs, CTOs, CFOs in the last few weeks, and we're May at this moment, and they are getting the bills, in their desks on AI consumption, which is good news and not so good news on the other side, right? It's like the tale of the two cities. On one side, is the good news is that we all know, tokens per million, the cost is going down, which is good news for the industry. I think that will increase consumption. But on the other side, that consumption increase is something that companies didn't forecast that much this year, right? And I'm not talking about companies that don't have the capability to do that. If you look at the news in the last couple of weeks, you will find that Uber, which is, you might assume that they have a very strong and senior technology team, they understand the digital landscape. They said that as of this month, they use 100% of their AI budget for the whole year, which is
They burned through their budget in whatever, 5 months.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's more than $1 billion, right? It's a large budget, right? Uh, Same with Microsoft. Look at Microsoft. Microsoft had to cancel the utilization of cloud code for part of their employees because the consumption and was going up, exponentially, and the costs were going up exponentially. So I'm talking about companies that know how to use technology and are
Totally,
at
totally. And
some
these are kind
case,
of the head of the curve, right?
they're
Everybody, all
ahead
these
of the
other companies
curve.
are behind. It's coming to you. If you're not a tech company, this problem will be coming to you.
It's coming to you. And I was talking to a CIO of a CPG company, a global company that they do produce alcoholic beverages, and he was telling me the same story, different scale, right? He was saying, "Listen, I got this invoice from two of the large AI labs. It's much more of what I had in my budget. The CFO is pushing me now. I want to cross-charge these to the different functions." And the person says, "No, don't do that. Now you go back and cut costs in a different part of the budget, right?" And if you're a CIO, that's a difficult thing to do because someone else is using the service, this AI tokens, and then you need to find savings on the other side. Now, I think what we need to understand is why this is happening, right? Because
Yeah.
this is more or less where we are, right? And I feel there are three things happening. The first one is obviously employees are using more AI than they were using before. We all started with chatbot. We started to ask questions, and that has a low consumption of tokens. But now, this same CIO was telling me, I go to a meeting, I ask a question, and after 5 minutes, I have a deck of 15 pages, right? People are
Right.
using it to produce content, right? To produce images. And that consumes a lot of tokens for tasks that in many cases are not, so related to productivity, right? So
Yeah.
more utilization in companies on one side. On the other side, you have some companies that started to use AI agents, and I don't think we have understood yet how complex it is to forecast AI agents, right?
Yeah.
AI agents are meant to do different activities in a chain, right? And take different decisions. And they might consume one AI agent, might consume or might run 15, 20 activities, and that might consume a lot of tokens, right? And depending on how many humans in the loop do you have, or how many sources of information it research, it keeps consuming more and more and more tokens, right? So
Right.
forecasting AI agents is a skill that I think companies we are learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Last but not least, which is related to the first two, is the governance aspect, right? I mean, there is no clear holistic governance specifically for agents, not even on the AI expenditure. I think all companies know how much they pay to each of the AI labs, but I think we need to evolve into tracking every AI call, the cost of every use case, right? To really
Totally.
understand do I use AI to do this activity, or I prefer to deal with humans because it's much cheaper,
Right.
right? I mean, you need to have the P&L the AI P&L by use case. The second thing is we tend to use same model for everything. And in many cases, that's an overkill. You're using a model that is very expensive to do it.
Do you have an example, Marcelo, of maybe somebody who's using an expensive model versus a cheap model, or
Well,
anything
yeah,
coming
I
up?
mean, if you look at, there's a very good example which is public, right? I think it's J.P. Morgan. They have this agent called Ask David,
Oh, okay.
I like, which is basically an advisor for their, wealth management practice. And there's a video online that shows how they architected the agent behind. So have many different agents that are doing different parts of that advising process.
Yeah,
And they don't disclose the models they use, but a good software engineer will tell you that, okay, and for small things like semantic parsing or, under summarizing a document, I might use an open source model, which is very cheap to run.
yeah, yeah. Free,
But
even free, cheap
it's
to free,
almost
right?
free.
Yeah,
It's almost free because you need to run it somewhere, right? But it's much cheaper than any of the Claude or OpenAI or any of the others. Um, and then they use the most complex ones to the activity that requires a much greater level of intelligence, right? So
yeah,
this architecture of agents, which it's a very technical topic, right? It has to be understood by management. So you can ask the right questions to your
yeah,
saying, okay, I understand we're spending $10 million in AI, but for what use cases? Are we using the right model to solve the right problem? Or there is a Gartner study that says that because of that, there is an underutilization of AI of 40-60%, which is basically that means that if you really optimize for model to the right model with the right activity, you may reduce your overall AI invoice significantly, right? Significantly.
yeah. It's almost like you've got, certain tasks and certain functions. I mean, you have AI agents that are doing work. They're doing work for you. And it's like not everybody shouldn't come with a sled. All the AI agents shouldn't come with a sledgehammer, right? Some just need a
Oh,
little, a little chipper. Some people need, and so and some people can probably just, use their thumb. So, to do so. There's different too, and each of them has a different cost. And I think when you have an infrastructure, and here's the like, I don't think people totally understand this, right? You can have what they call fleets of AI agents that are thousands, hundreds of thousands.
yeah. Oh, yes.
You can spin them up hundreds of thousands of these things doing work and solving problems. And that's the good thing, the positive thing. Obviously, it comes at a cost, but then it's your point. How do you manage and how do you govern in this? And it's almost like you need a layer of call it AI agent governance or AI agent cost review or throttles that you put into these AI agents that says, hey, you can't, here's the budget. If you can't go over this amount or we're going to shut you off. Just like almost like a human say, hey,
Yeah,
you're only
yeah,
working
yeah.
9 to 5, no overtime,
Absolutely.
because we don't have the budget, right? And I don't think those systems are, that I'm sure they have, but not totally not totally at scale. Is that how you're seeing it?
No, I see it that way. I mean, it is similar, David. You will know this because of your experience at Accenture when we were talking about cloud in the past and we created
Yeah.
FinOps, right? I mean, we need the same kind of financial governance that we have for cloud for AI agents. Now, it's as you describe it, it's much more difficult because cloud, I mean, yeah, you can spin a lot of virtual machines, at the beginning typical AI audit was I found 10 virtual machines that no one is using, so you should shut them down, right? And you save 20% of your cost. As you said before, you will have agents that might be making decisions and they might take actions that they might continue to consume tokens. So that requires a real-time accounting, more or less.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it require governance that is above policies, above post-mortem reviews. There are platforms of governance to monitor agent, fleets of agents that gives you that visibility, right?
Yeah.
And again, the visibility has to be, if we really want to make, you know, sound business decisions, we have to have a P&L almost by use case. For example,
Yeah.
if I'm saying I'm using agents for my digital content for my brand, okay, what's the cost of my fleet of agents and humans? And
Right.
that's my new salary wage and benefit line if I am an HRO, right? I mean,
Right.
if
Right.
I cannot have that visibility, are you using AI to solve a problem that maybe if you keep humans, it would be maybe cheaper and maybe even better, right? So,
Yeah.
so we need that kind of governance is I don't see it's in place today. It's pretty complex, right? It's pretty complex.
So would you say governance, or what would you say the biggest mistake? Is it governance or the biggest mistake that companies are making as it relates to AI cost control? What do you think the biggest mistake is?
I think the biggest mistake is first of all, l- let's understand how we all got into this, right? We got into chatbots
So,
individually, then we started to do proof of concepts in our organizations, which honestly they all work because it's very limited to a data set or to a use case. And then we said, okay, we want to scale this up because we want to see business results. And we skipped the governance stage to a later stage in the process. Okay, so I think the biggest mistake we are making is that we need to bring the governance conversation at the beginning, right?
yeah.
So if we are going to scale this agent across all marketing across the world for my company, what's the right level of governance and visibility in the financials? And it's not only the financials, or the actions of these agents, right? If the agent is creating a picture of my brand that I don't want to show, someone has to be monitoring that and
Yeah.
eventually having the human in the loop to say no, this is not the right proposition for our brand. But that governance conversation has to come earlier, right? Much
Mhm.
earlier, right? And the
Mhm.
governance infrastructure, which is not again, it's not only policies, it's not only reviews, it's not only management reviews, is tools to monitor the agents have to be in place at the very beginning of the strategy process of creating an AI agentic organization. I think that's not happening in 100% of the cases, I would say.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, totally, totally. I mean, I think and people are still kind of figuring it out. And and it's of the there's probably 10, maybe 10% of the companies out there in the US. I'm not even thinking globally. I'm just even thinking it's probably worse globally because we're kind of advanced in the AI area, but that are kind of ahead and just kind of figuring out this stuff. I'd say 90% of the company, the other 90%, they barely even have their first agent out there, right? That's doing things, right?
No,
And they're
no, no,
realizing the
no.
potential, right? So it's this thing is, I mean, and by the way, and you think about that though. I mean, that's why these companies, that's why you can't get enough chips. That's why the demand is super high. That's why these IPOs are huge, because the agents and the use cases are still in the very, very infancy. I mean, these companies are going through the roof, but it's still in the infancy. And so when you look at these different agents, I guess there's two-part questions. Like, what makes some cost more than the others? Is it just the model that you're using, the type of intelligence that you're getting? How much it's being hit, the token utilization? What are the big cost drivers?
I think it's obviously token utilization one. I would say we are we, we are not yet at the point in where we are actually adding the human cost of it. But you have the cost of building the agent, you have the cost of monitoring the agent, you have the consumption cost of the agent, right? You have the human cost of being the human in the loop in the whole process of the agent, right? And that's the total cost of an agent, right? Today, I think we are just maybe looking at parts of it, maybe more on the invoice coming from OpenAI or Anthropic. And again, that's one out of four things that we need to consider because the overall infrastructure to monitoring agents is expensive, right? It's expensive in tools and in talent, right? In tools and in talent. So I think it is the tokens, and then the way to minimize that cost, as I was saying before, is do what is called model routing, which is choosing the right model for the right task, right? That will
Yeah,
help you to reduce the cost. There is another software engineering technique called prompt catching, right? Means that, to give you an example, if I'm reading a policy to understand if I have to answer a client one type of answer or the other, and I'm reading that policy 100 times per day, well, that is in the cache of the model, and I'm not constantly accessing to it, and that will reduce the cost of agents significantly. And and last but not least, every time you and me use AI to read a report, right? Let's say
yeah,
we read and maybe we're interested in one chapter of the report, but what
yeah,
we send the whole PDF, right?
yeah,
Right. So, well, I mean, there are ways of saying if I need one chapter that are 2 pages out of 67,
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
send I
yeah.
send 2 pages because you're paying for the information you send. There's a token for input, right? And it's a cost of output, right? So
Right.
you can reduce that input cost if you really um, are choiceful on what context or documents you augment an AI agent with. So
Yeah,
choose the right model. Um, Keep the most used things handy so you don't have to read it twice. And then the things you read, just send to the model and to the agent what you need the agent to know, not more than that, because you're paying for that. There is no
yeah,
free,
yeah.
there's no free anything, okay?
Exactly. There's no free lunch. There's no
No,
free
no, no,
agents.
no, 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 no.
No, and and I have a couple of I have a bunch of agents set up in chat GPT for various functions for me. Well, I guess personally and goals and things that I have. But everyone, you get it going, and then they say, "Oh no, upgrade for this," or "Hey, you've maxed out of your free thing," and then so then I start and so the simple, I go to Grok or whatever or Gemini, and just keep using different tools, and you could see that a more automated way, right? Where it's just always, you got all these models out there, which is always optimizing for cost, right? I mean, there's a lot of tech out there. There's some free,
The,
and there's
the,
always,
the, the good news, David, in most of the models today, they have this routing system, right? When you prompt something, they will use the model that looks the best. Most of the things I share with you is maybe they apply more for when you're building agents that are more complex, right? Let's say
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in an agent for customer service. I mean, again,
yeah,
guys, look at the JP Morgan case. It's an amazing software engineering AI agent case. It's very easy to understand, but see how they actually were choiceful. I do this, I do that, I divide the process in different parts. For this part, I use this agent. For this part, I use this another agent. I have an agent that looks at if these are the you know great way to answer this question to this customer. I have the context of the customer short term. I have the context of the customer longer term. It's very well done. Remember, financial institutions have been working with AI for, I don't know, 20 years. AI, machine learning,
yeah,
right? So when people say, "Oh, listen, what financial institutions are doing," I tell them, "Listen, they have been training for 20 years, right? So they have the talent, they understand the models. I mean, they understand many things which are foundation. The data is in the right place, foundational things that most companies today are trying to catch up
yeah.
towards that. Yeah.
And so, and you think, and by the way, and I was just talking about, call it the US LLMs, right? And the big AI players, but there's China, right? And, and pretty much for the most part globally, it's just you have two players, the US and China. And it's interesting how this thing is going to play out, right? And actually how they're tightening up the AI models in China, certain thing, right? If you ask the AI models in China, is communism good, right? You're going to get an answer
Yeah.
you would expect back, right? Um, but they're very inexpensive, right? And I think it was roughly last year, right, that the Chinese model came out and shook the market, right? And it kind of made a
Sick. That was deep
big
sick. Yeah.
tremor. And so there's a lot of cheap models out there. Why can everybody, what's the risk, or why not use these Chinese models? What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I'm gonna give you a data-driven answer. It's not a geopolitical answer. Right? There is a geopolitical problem, right? I don't want our information to be in a server in another country, right? So meaning that if I use those models through APIs, that might be not a smart move. I would say not even the right move. Now, all these models are open source. What does it mean? That you can actually download them and run them in your infrastructure, in your servers, right? So you only interact with them, and information doesn't go to any other place through the internet or in the cloud or in any other repository outside your company, outside the country, etc., etc. Many companies are using it. I mean, there is a big conversation. I think most of 50% of young US startups in the US are using a couple of Chinese models. They're using maybe Alibaba's Queen or Kimi, which are very good. They're cheap, and the reason they're cheap is, remember, they couldn't get access to the best possible chips that we have here with NVIDIA, so they have to work on the other side of the equation. They have to make the models very, very efficient.
Yeah.
So they were constrained, so they make them very, very efficient. And remember, if you're running a company, to your previous example, with 100 agents, you're not going to be always using the most expensive model. There is a business case to use cheaper models, right? So I would say, yes, you should use open source models. There are some Chinese models that are good, but make sure that you have the right software engineering team behind so you don't run into any, data leakage or, some backdoors that these models could have. There are ways of preventing those things. And actually, the risk is in any model, right? When we talk about prompt injection, right? Someone is injecting a prompt in our agent to make the agent do something wrong, or, disclosing information about my company, about my customers. That can be done with any model, the Chinese models, US models, Latin American models, any model, right? So the risk is existing across models. So you should, in any case, you should defend against those things. But they are very efficient, right? There are many open source. You go to Hugging Face, there are thousands of open source models that are well used uh, in enterprise applications, right? And again, in the US, we're using many startups. We're using, very startups, well-funded startups.
Yeah.
We are using those models as part of products, right? So it's happening.
And I'm trying to so if I were to kind of just summarize a couple areas, right? I mean, the governance is a key, to those CFOs, senior leaders who are listening to this, right? I mean, governance is the key thing, but there's multidimensional, in the governance. It's like what models you're using, how you're controlling costs, how you're looking at policies, even what's stored externally. Do you have any internal models, right? With like in the case, the example that you gave with Chinese, and potentially leveraging those, but potentially do you have it in house? Uh, uh, and then I think the most important part, no, I think they're all important, but it was like measuring the value, right? Like, okay, we're doing this function. This function gives us this much value. How much are we paying it? How much were we paying it for in the past
To
with humans
AI,
doing it?
yeah.
How much are we paying it for AI? Or is it a hybrid, and really measuring that? Any would you along those any other summary points, Marcelo, that you would add to, kind of like call it the key takeaways around AI
I think you
costs?
summarized most of them. I would say, you know, you're in boards, right? And maybe the question that boards keeps asking is, do you have a strategy, right? And that, that's a good question to have. But in terms of models, I think boards should have visibility to what I call AI model share, right, in the organization. So it's just a picture that shows all your business processes and all the different models that you're using to support your business process. Why? Because
Love it.
that's a resilience question. For example, if all my customer service processes are sitting on one model, I need to know that because if I have an outage or I have a problem with the model in the future, my whole customer service department will stop working, right?
That's
So
right.
you want to make sure you have that, not all eggs in one basket, and make sure you understand the mix, right? Open source, large AI models, and what business process you are supporting with those. I think that is a very strategic question. Remember, we're going to be running organizations with AI instead of humans, right? That's what we're saying. So we need to know that, right? We need to start to have visibility today, and that's a great governance question to ask, honestly.
I love that one. I think you made me think of another, call it, I love exponential growth. The amount of, call it, it's like the amount of one person startups is increasing, right? But very soon here, you're going to have pure AI company unicorn. It's really I
Mhm.
mean, maybe you have an owner that's a human. I guess eventually you have to have, some owner that's a
Hopefully,
human. I think,
hopefully we have one at least.
yeah. But the company CEO, everything run by, we're in a very interesting, exciting time, which is why is the thesis around exponential growth and why we're doing these podcasts and getting the information out there to hopefully those who are listening give you an inside view, make improve your probability for success in this rapidly changing world. So, Marcelo, how do people stay connected with you on social and all the great stuff you got going on?
Well, I mean, best way is LinkedIn. You will find me in LinkedIn, Marcelo De Santis. Always, writing things. I like to use LinkedIn to learn myself. So connect with me. I respond to the posts and to the comments. Sometimes I have to think a bit before responding because you guys are asking very good questions. And follow the Executive House where we have two great shows. One is the CEO series with Will Salvi, and another one is the Tech series where I have the pleasure to host. Uh, that's another way to connect with me and with the things I do within the industry. And last but not least, if you're not a member of Angeles Investors, I'm asking you, what are you waiting for being a member of Angeles Investors and having the opportunity to connect with David and the great network that we have in this organization.
So no, hey, and what is it, 100% plus one cosign on the analyst investors there, and yeah, and a special shout out and thanks to the Executive House for sponsoring this and Angeles and all the great work that they do. So Marcelo, again, thank you, and yeah, I'm sure we'll have you back on. This AI stuff is only warming up, probably maybe one around these IPOs that are coming out.
Oh
So
yeah, it's coming soon. We have SpaceX, and I mean, SpaceX, I think, is more an AI IPO than a space company IPO. If you look at
you got data centers, they're doing chips for Anthropic, they got their own models. It's exciting times, exciting times.
it.
Marcelo, thank you. Have an excellent
Thank
one.
you. Bye bye.